So I watched the whole presentation, but I really just don't understand what PC laptop chips they're comparing the new MacBook's performance to. Oh, wait a minute. I found them. All right, welcome to Mike Techs Without, and today I am breaking down the Apple event from yesterday. So I just watched it, so the thoughts was fresh in my head. I jotted down some notes. I kind of wanted to give my take on everything going in order of the event. We're gonna get it jumping here with the HomePod Mini. They introduced 3 new colors. There's a blue, which is kind of boring because it's really dark. It's kind of close to the black. But there's a yellow and orange, and I thought the orange was popping, honestly. Like, if I get a new one, which we might get a third one because I need one in my room to control my lights and stuff, I might get the orange one, I'll be honest. The orange was cool. The yellow also popped. I just thought the blue was kind of boring. The new colors are cool. Not much to say about the HomePod Mini. It's still good. I feel like it's a good value for the price. I've really been enjoying mine. I do miss the big HomePod, that sound. It just sounds great. I'm still using my big HomePod downstairs, and it's still one of the best sounding speakers in the house. Now, speaking of best sounding speakers, these are not speakers, they're headphones. So they finally refreshed the baseline AirPods. They're calling them the AirPods 3, but in reality, they're really the AirPods 2. The AirPods 2 is just kind of like a very minor refresh. They just introduced a wireless charging case, and it has slightly more battery life, but this is an actual redesign. So they kind of meshed the AirPods Pro with the original AirPods. They gave them water resistance, they gave them spatial audio. They're gonna have up to 6 hours of battery life. I believe you can get 30 hours of additional charge with the case. And the case is pretty much the same as the AirPods Pro case. They don't have the ear tips though, which I actually think was a smart decision, because one of the things that I've heard people say they like about the regular AirPods is that they don't have the tips and they fit in a lot more people's ear as a result. So they still have that Pro line if people want to get the audio, you know, with the noise canceling, that's excellent, and they want like a deeper fit. But for people who just want a good general headphones, but the new design is good. They're also going to apparently use an algorithm to make sure that the sound sounds consistent no matter what type of fit you have with them. So I'm interested to see how well that works. But they are going to be $180, and they're kind of nipping at that AirPods Pro price range, especially with their Pro being on sale recently. I've seen them for that price. But now that these new AirPods are releasing, it might be less likely that we'll see the Pro at that price again, unless they're planning on refreshing the Pros soon, which is a possibility. They are getting a little bit long in the tooth now, but I think that the Pros are still a better value. They're going to continue to sell the regular AirPods at $129. It's really going to depend on how good the new ones sound. The design is definitely better than the original AirPods. The long stems like look kind of stupid, especially when you look at like someone with the Pros in their ears and the regular ones. It looks kind of dumb. I'm really interested to see what people have to say about the regular AirPods. The new ones, the water resistance is cool, but I don't see the AirPods as workout headphones. Like, you know, the Pros have water resistance too, but I have my Powerbeats Pro specifically for workouts because they have the hook that go around my ears and they stay in my ears. I've just never had luck with any other headphones, like especially earbuds, staying in my ears during a workout. So the water resistance is cool. It's good, like if you drop them in a toilet or something like that, which is horrible. I hope that doesn't happen. Or you accidentally wash them, maybe, then they have a better chance of surviving. But I just don't see them as being like workout headphones. Moving on, let's talk about the main event. Let's talk about the new MacBooks. But before we talk about the MacBooks, we gotta talk about the new chips. And this naming convention, what is going on, Apple? Come on. I was expecting the M1X. It sounds cooler, but you gave us the M1 Pro and then the M1 Max. And I guess in the sense of like the iPhone, it makes sense. They're trying to do a consistent naming scheme that people understand. They're just like, but I don't know. I'm fine with Pro, okay? The Max is just where, like, I don't know. It just reminds me of Pepsi Max. Every time I hear Max something related to Apple, I'm like, oh, Pepsi Max. Like, what if they introduced the third tier chip in the presentation? They're like, this is gonna be the M1 Pepsi Max. And it's literally like an M1 chip inside of a Pepsi can. And I would just be like, I knew this is where it was going. I knew that it was gonna end with this the whole time. They both are gonna have 10-core CPUs. The main difference is the M1 Pro is only gonna have a 16-core GPU, and it's gonna have 200 gigabytes of memory bandwidth, whereas the Max is gonna have 400 gigabytes of memory bandwidth and a 32 gig GPU. Although when I was looking at the models for the new MacBook, they listed a 24 core option for the Max. So I think it's up to 32, but you're definitely just getting 16 cores of graphics performance with the baseline M1 Pro. Now, what I came to see was this new MacBook. I was like, there is no possible way that they're gonna bring back the HDMI port and they're gonna bring back the SD card slot. And I was wrong. I'll admit it, fully wrong. I was like, there's no way they're backtracking. This literally feels like an update to the 2015 MacBook Pro, the last one that unanimously everybody loved because it had the right amount of ports. It had MagSafe. They also brought MagSafe back, and it's supposed to be even faster. So you can go up to 50% charge in 30 minutes, which, considering that they're saying that these MacBooks can get up to 21 hours of battery life, that's actually a lot for 30 minutes. Like, if you really need this on the go and you're like, oh, I forgot to charge it, let me just charge it up really quick, getting to 50% in 30 minutes is kind of a big deal, especially for a laptop. So that's pretty cool. As far as the design, I mean, I like it. I saw it and I was like, wow, this really reminds me of my first MacBook, which was the 2015 MacBook Pro. And I was like, wow, this really, really takes me back in a good way. Like the MagSafe was awesome. You can also still charge through Thunderbolt. So if you have like a monitor that supplies power, you can still use that to charge, or if you still just want to use USB-C charger, you can still use that too. The display, now they're bringing that Pro Display XDR, the 120 hertz high refresh rate display, to the MacBooks. That was also something else that was rumored. And they're going to be mini LED like a new iPads with 1000 nits of sustained brightness and 1600 nits of peak brightness. Also, the 13-inch is now a 14-inch. So obviously the lower end MacBook Pro with the M1 is still going to be 13 inches. And then the new one is going to be 14. I said this in an earlier video, but I really feel like they should move both the MacBook Pros up to 14 and leave the Air at that 13-inch, especially since it's like not a Pro machine, it's supposed to be a consumer machine. And that way, even if you get the lower end MacBook Pro with the M1, you're like, well, at least I'm getting a bigger screen and kind of the same features as the higher spec one. So right now, you know, they're still using that old design for the lower end MacBook Pro that they have with Intel. But I'd be interested to see maybe next year when they refresh it, if they bring it up to the 14-inch, because I feel like they should be consistent across the line if it's a MacBook Pro. So yeah, basically you're getting 3 Thunderbolt ports, MagSafe, an HDMI port, and an SD card slot. And they got rid of the touch bar. They brought back the function buttons. And the way that they kind of like phrased it was just hilarious. They were like, our users really love the function buttons on our Magic Keyboard, so we brought it to the Mac. I'm like, no, you brought it back because you took it away for the touch bar. Either people hated it or they were indifferent about it, but no one really loved it. So now you're just bringing back what you already had before and being like, oh, this is a new feature that we brought to our consumers. This is the craziest thing that I've seen come from Apple, because it just literally feels like you could put the 2015 and this new MacBook Pro beside each other and you would look at it and be like, oh yeah, this must have been next year's model. It really feels like the upgrade that we should have got back in 2016 instead of going to these super skinny butterfly keyboard, touch bar, MacBook catching on fire and you gotta put it in the freezer. All the issues that they had because they wanted to go to the skinny design with those Intel chips that weren't efficient enough to handle it. This is kind of them making up for it. Now, of course, I gotta talk about the elephant in the room. I mentioned how good the display was, but they also added a 1080p webcam, which, you know, welcome to the 2010s. Since they've made this bezel smaller, they put a notch on the MacBook, and some people are gonna feel some type of way about it. It's something that they've been dealing with on the PC side for years now, because they've been moved over to the smaller bezels on laptops. And it's either been like, you know, the bezel's gonna be a little bit thicker and we're gonna put a really crappy webcam in there. Some manufacturers put the webcam on the bottom, which this looks awful. And there was even a point where some were offering like a webcam in the box that you clip onto the top when you wanted to use it, which really isn't great, because like if you're somewhere and you're like, oh, I need to do this video call, you're probably not gonna take that thing around with you everywhere. So Apple's solution was to put a notch. They just love notches. They just love them, and they wanted to put a notch in the laptop. And at this point, I'm like, look, if you're able to keep the 720p webcam and possibly make it smaller, I probably would have just done that, like make that notch smaller. Like me personally, it wouldn't really bother me that much because I don't do a lot of full screen stuff on my computer. I'm just interested to see how full screen content is going to display up here, like videos. Is it going to mess up the viewing experience? Is that notch going to get in the way of some applications? That's what I'm curious about. It's a odd design choice for a laptop, but honestly, in my opinion, as someone who's never going to buy this computer anyway because I'm more of a Windows user, it's not enough for me. Like if I was interested in buying it and I saw the notch, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's gonna ruin the experience. It's fine. Like it's not that big of a deal, really. Now, as far as performance, I'm not even gonna go over that because it's really gonna be up in the air until people actually test it. Like they did their ridiculous benchmarks again. The same thing I joked about last year with the PC laptop chips. They did it again.
And here's the integrated graphics in that 8-core PC laptop chip.
How does this keep happening? And they even had one where they're like, this is the top PC laptop with graphics performance. And yeah, it's faster than our laptop, but it's 100 more watts and it's not that much faster graphics wise. And I'm like, okay, this whole thing is like pointless unless you name the chips or just compare directly to the Intel counterparts, which in some slides they did. But like, I just feel like they should have just kept it focused on comparing it to their previous generation with the Intel chips if they didn't want to name the chip specifically. I don't know why they do this every year. I don't know why they're doing this again with the performance, comparing it to PC laptop chips. I mean, I know why, especially with Intel making all these ads about them and you should choose a PC and all this stuff. But the presentation was overall pretty good. It started off with the HomePods, which was a little bit boring. Then it ramped up to the new MacBooks and the new M1 chips, which everybody wanted to see. Of course, there's still 2 computers left for them to update. Well, really 3, which is the Mac Mini. They need to replace the Intel version of that on the higher end. The same thing with the iMac. And then there's also the Mac Pro, which they'll be really interesting. I'm just wondering how they're going to handle the Mac Pro. Like, are they going to release a desktop system with integrated graphics only? Are they going to offer a way to upgrade graphics and RAM on that one? I have no idea. But let me know what you thought of the event. I really enjoyed the design of the new MacBooks, all the features that they're bringing to it, you know, high refresh rate, HDMI ports, all kinds of crazy stuff we thought they'd never do again. They did it. They did it. And you know what I'm doing? I'm bringing this video to a conclusion. But if you enjoyed it, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to get notified when I drop a video, and always do at least 2 things at the same time.